Building and improving your credit score requires practical strategies and consistent habits. Secured credit cards, for instance, are a useful tool, especially for those new to credit or rebuilding it. By making a deposit that serves as your credit limit, you can build credit with responsible usage. Credit builder loans work similarly, allowing you to build credit as you make payments with the loan funds released at the end. Becoming an authorized user on another's credit card can also boost your score if the primary account holder has good payment history and low credit utilization. Managing credit utilization is key. Keeping usage below 30% of your credit limit is ideal, and paying balances in full each month helps. Setting up automatic payments can ensure you don't miss due dates and build a good payment history. Reviewing credit reports regularly and limiting new applications protect your score. Combining these tactics can strengthen your credit over time, opening doors to favorable financial options.
Ted, what's the fastest way someone can boost their credit score?
The fastest way is probably to get errors taken off. Like Chi-Chi said earlier, about 1 in 5 Americans have errors on their credit reports. And some of these are really significant. Maybe it's identity theft, a fake account that doesn't belong to you. Maybe it's a late payment that you actually made on time. Getting those disputed and removed can be really, really impactful. Now, as far as other things, in general, credit is more of a marathon than a sprint. We're talking about over the long haul, paying bills on time, keeping debts low, showing that you can successfully use various types of credit over the long term. Late payments can stick with you for up to 7 years. Now, the impact is going to be most pronounced in the first 2. I would say if you have a misstep in your credit past, try to fill your report with good information. And you can't always get that wiped off, but maybe at the very least, double down on making sure your current payments are going to be on time. Maybe get on someone else's credit card as an authorized user, like a parent or a spouse or a sibling. Sign up for something like Experian Boost, which can give you credit for things that haven't historically counted, like streaming services, cell phone plans, certain rent and utility payments. There are some things that you can do. Bring your credit utilization down. If you have a credit card and whatever credit you're using divided by credit available to you, you want that ratio to be as low as possible. And it's reported on the statement date. So if you use a card a lot and you have a $5,000 balance and the credit card limit is only $7,000, you're using a lot of that available credit. Could you pay that down in the middle of the month, knock that number down before the statement even comes out? Could you ask for a higher credit limit? It does take credit to build credit, I would say.
So sometimes it's worth asking for a higher credit limit, even though you have no plans to use it.
If you're going to use it responsibly, if you're somebody who has credit card debt, the average interest rate is 20%. We don't want to add to that. So, some of these tips are more for people that are confident they can use the card without paying interest. Maybe they're more focused on rewards and other things. I want to stress, too, that you don't have to be perfect with credit scores. Once you hit about 740 on that scale that goes from 300 to 850, once you hit about 740, you're probably going to get the best terms. So you don't necessarily want to be perfect, but you do want to strive to have the best score that you can, within reason. One more thing to point out here, about 10% of Americans don't have a credit score at all. They're what's known as credit invisible. Maybe they haven't used credit in the past, or at least in a while. Another 40% or so have what's considered subprime credit, basically a lower credit score. So really, when we're talking about credit building or credit rebuilding, we're talking to about half of all Americans. That's a significant portion of the population.
I like the idea that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Preston, along those lines, what role do good financial habits like budgeting and timely payments play in really creating a sustainable, practice for building a good credit score?
Yeah, absolutely. I always share that budgets, they don't show what you can't do. They show what you can do, because they're actually freeing. Where if you look at your money and you don't know where it's going, or it's going too much out of the window. I'm staying in my parents' house right now that I grew up in for almost 30 years. And there's a little plaque on the wall that says there's too much money at the end of the money, you know? And what that means is like, I don't feel well about my money sometimes, right? And if we have a budget, it says, wow, I know what my money can do for me. And what does that have to do about credit? Well, if you know what you're spending on your everyday living expenses, gas, entertainment, maybe utilities, all this, right? And you know what you can spend, well, that can help your credit too, because you can use your credit card in order to pay for those expenses and then pay those off intra-month, so you're not getting charged any interest, but you're also showing that you are demonstrating that you are a good credit manager. You're also managing your budget at the same time. So I've heard the word behavior come up a couple of times. Good behaviors, good habits, practices, whatever synonym you want to use. Those are the consistencies that are going to compound over time and result in a better score. And I also heard one more thing. I also heard that, yes, is this a quote unquote game? It's good to know the rules. The more information that we have, the better. And if we know it earlier and we practice it earlier, then we won't have to get into the situation where we're having to do a whole bunch of repair later on.
Mm. Rocky, you work with a lot of business owners. Do we have to think differently for an individual's household versus running their business in that credit?
Well, so those are two different credits, right? You have your personal credit, and then depending on how the business is set up, there is business credit. Unfortunately, business credit, especially for smaller companies, is very difficult. More often than not, when they're getting credit, it's against an asset. So they can get a real estate loan, or they can go to the SBA for a loan, or they can get a vehicle loan. But if they want working capital, which is always needed in the business, it's not easy. And many times they also have to sign their personal credit against their business credit, which means they're personally responsible for what happens with the business. I know during COVID, the government handed out a lot of loans. I think they were called the EIDL loans. And if a business owner took those loans out above $150,000, they are personally on the hook for those particular things, which again causes more trouble if something goes wrong, because then it not only is your business gone, your personal credit's gone, which now you got double whammy.
Yeah, that's not good. Chi-Chi, what protections exist for consumers trying to rebuild their credit?
So credit reports, credit scores are regulated in the United States under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. This is basically the nation's first privacy law, a data fairness law. It requires the big three credit bureaus like Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, plus tenant screeners like RealPage or Yardi. It requires them to have reasonable procedures for maximum possible accuracy. It requires them to investigate disputes. So if you think you have an error in your credit report, you can dispute it. And they're supposed to conduct what's called a reasonable investigation. You're allowed a free copy of your report once a year from the big three credit bureaus. And you can also get a free copy of specialty reports. So things like check systems and early warning services and tenant screeners that I mentioned earlier. You're entitled to notices when a report's used against you. So someone pulls your credit report or your tenant report and turns you down for credit or an apartment. You're supposed to get a notice telling you that it happened and what company was used to pull your report. So these are sort of basic common sense data, like, fair information practices type protections. And they are really what govern both credit reports and other types of reports. There are also things to prevent identity theft. And the single most important measure, like if you're concerned about identity theft, if you're worried someone's got your social security number, your information, the single most effective thing you can do, and it's completely free, is to freeze your credit, to put a freeze on your credit report. You can go to all of three of the big three credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and request to freeze. That locks down your report so that it can't be used for new credit until you lift or thaw that freeze. So if you want some control over your credit report and prevent identity theft, get a freeze.
Here's a quick question for the panel. Should one be, I guess, suspicious or skeptical if being sold or pitched like how to fix your credit quickly? Like, does it not work that way?
No, it doesn't. And you should, that is like a big red alarm bell. Do not do that, because there are a lot of companies out there called credit repair companies or credit repair outfits that they'll promise you, we can fix your credit, and they'll sign you up for a monthly subscription. You end up paying a lot of money. And what they do is they try to flood the credit bureaus with disputes, but the credit bureaus, like their whole system is built so that bad information doesn't come off your report permanently due to credit repair. You're just going to be out a lot of money if you sign up for credit repair, and it's going to end up hurting you at the end.
Anyone else?
Yeah, big red flag. There's so many scams out there, unfortunately, and scams are getting worse, actually. Hacks, people asking that, getting messages straight on your cell phone now, and it looks like they may even put the Experian logo on there or whatever the credit bureau is, banks. And so just be careful, because there's so much information that's coming via email, via text message, even Messenger is coming over. So just watch out for these and big scams. And I would say that it takes a while to repair your credit. Okay, it's just not going to happen overnight. This is more of a, at minimum, 6 to 9 months. It's more like, say, 9 to 18 months to repair your credit, and that's just the start.
Great advice. So buyer beware. Let's go to segment 3.